What do they give? Well, we're going to identify IPEI's 3 grants and talk about the specifics of each one so we know what they are. Why do they give? I'll talk briefly in a second about IPEI's mission and history so that we understand the philosophy IPEI brings to the table when they read your grant applications. And when do they give? We do have deadlines. We are not a rolling grant opportunity, as much as I know Joyce would love that just every week. But we do have 3 deadlines throughout the year, and we'll identify those as we go through. It's really important to be on time for the deadlines. Maybe? Okay. So, the Ithaca Public Education Initiative, IPEI. Right, so our mission, our vision, and our values. The idea behind IPEI, it connects community to classroom and classrooms to community. The idea behind IPEI is a way to support innovative educational activities across the Ithaca City School District by providing grants to teachers and staff members to do new and exciting things in their classroom and outside their classroom. Okay, we have over 20 years partnered with the district in support of all kinds of initiatives. And what I found as a newcomer to Ithaca and as a newcomer to IPEI is the overview of our vision is that we want to support innovation. We want to support the new things. We want to help share with people like Adam and Liddy and their respective communities what teachers want and what they're trying to do, because you're on the front lines. You know what's needed in classrooms. We want to back you up on that, and we want to help collect that information and share out what's working, and fairly enough, what's not working, right? If you want to try something that doesn't work, that's a hard sell to make, right, for me, but if you want to try something that doesn't work, that's totally okay, because that helps us know this doesn't work, and that's important, right? Because teaching is about learning for us as professionals, and working with students takes all kinds of things. So we have our vision that all of the schools and all of the experiences of students are made better by connecting them to the classroom, connecting the community of Ithaca with all of its different stripes, its different focuses, and its love for education and its students, bringing that into the classroom wherever possible. We look at our values to enhance educational experiences, community involvement, creativity, and responsiveness. We are here, I like to focus on responsiveness. As part of that, I was talking to a lot of teachers over my first year and last year who said, I'm struggling with writing, or I have questions. Call me or email me. I'm in the office a lot, and I'm always on my phone email. And here we are right now. And if later you think this is really valuable, I can come to your school and talk to teachers in a formal setting like this or a less formal setting. Please let me know. And that's what I'm sharing with your leadership of each of your buildings as well. As I meet with them this month and next, that we are available to come and talk about grants one-on-one, on the phone, in person, however you like to do it, or in small groups. IPEI makes 3 types of grants, primarily. Okay. Our first grant that we'll identify is our Red and Gold grant. These are one-time grants of up to $500, and they're made 3 times annually. And they're available for staff, students, or community members, meaning that it does not have to be a teacher who directly applies for this grant, but we are looking, and we'll get into the application in a few minutes, to identify that the project strengthens and enriches learning and has a positive impact on student performance and student engagement. Okay, our applications are due October 11th, January 17th, and March 28th. All of our final dates do have an asterisk. You'll see in this presentation and on all of our documentation that we have certain funds that we've allocated for this year. And if there are funds permitting at the end of the year, we have spent a lot of time last year thinking about how, on the accounting end of things, to approve grants that could go into effect for the fall of the next year. So we do want to keep that window open, and we'll have more information prior to that deadline as to whether we're looking in that direction. Okay? You'll see a bunch of different emails. They all end up in my email box. They're all like fake emails that direct to me, but it's easy to remember. Red and gold grants or teacher grants. Grants at IPEI may be easiest to remember. That all gets to me. Okay? So red and gold grants are one-time awards up to $500. Usually we're looking for something new, a product that can be used more than once in a classroom, or an experience that can be done more than once, and we will say, how do we do that without another $500 grant? And we'll talk about that in a minute, that question that we want you to think about. So that's our first type of grant. So we're in the, what do they give section. Teacher grants. Teacher grants are grants of up to $1,500. And this is the grant that ties most closely to our mission of connecting classrooms to community, because this grant requires what we call in the application and in the lingo around IPEI, a community partner. So someone from outside of the classroom of the school who brings an expertise, a skill, an ability that you may not have as a teacher or that the students may desire access to. These are educational projects and they require that community partner to be something that connects the classroom to community. With that being said, that partner may come to your classroom, that partner may come to the school, or that partner may meet you somewhere else. All of those are options and variables around teacher grants. Applications are due 3 times this year. We have pushed up the fall application date to allow people, if they have programs in the fall they want to run, or more time to plan for a spring program. We did move it up a little bit this year. And again, funds permitting, we may take grants for the fall of next year, knowing that you might have a really great idea mid-year and you just want to say it goes perfect with my unit in October. We can talk about that towards the end of the year. This is the type of grant connecting classrooms that I'll talk about briefly today, but actually has the easiest application initial process and then becomes much more detailed. So a Connecting Classrooms grant comes out of a capital campaign, is it 5 years ago, about the capital campaign? About 5, to raise a pool of funds to fund larger projects. And these funds are specifically directed towards these types of grants, and they are designed to connect classrooms, either within the same building or across different schools. So an example from last year was that all of the elementary schools, all of the library staff in every elementary school applied for a Connecting Classroom grant to bring Brian Yanish, a student speaker, and an author who spoke to every elementary school as a whole over the course of 2.5 days, and also met with a grade for a project on turning trash into treasure was the name of the grant, but it was about recycling and turning junk, this idea of makerspace again, into something creative and useful. So that we were able to support that because it connected all of the classrooms and it was worked on by all of the librarians in the district. This grant is a possibility of up to $10,000. The initial input for the grant is very simple. We need a letter of interest, meaning why we should be interested in this project. And then we'll come back to you and say, we are interested. We'll talk about the details in the next step of this presentation. We do take these at the same time during the year, but we recognize that the spring is definitively for the next year because of the time involved in the preparation of a grant like this. Okay, so again, email address for those. And like I said, the tiny URL for this, is I'll share it with you all later so you'll have this presentation. So what I want to talk about right now is our application sections. So we're going to kind of walk through an application. So for those of you who are paper people, I have paper copies. For those of you who are digital humans, right? These are links to the application. So if you'd rather see it on your screen right now, you can click right there, it's a PDF. This is the red and gold application, so it's just blank. It's got all the pages, I'm just gonna pass them around. Take one, and then I'll pass out an example when we get there. The applications are 90% the same, so I'm gonna focus on pieces from each application to identify their differences. So take a minute to pass those around. So inside your application, it's broken down in general like this. The criteria, what the grant should be about, and we'll start with the red and gold to identify that. Who can tell me how much a red and gold can be? Up to 500, good. So the criteria identifies what we're looking to support. Okay? When you write your grant application, look at that criteria. Tell my grants committee what you're doing and how it matches the criteria, right? If you do that, you are a better step towards getting to yes. We're gonna ask about the applicant info. We wanna know who's applying for this actual grant. If it is yourself as a teacher, we'll ask you for that information, where you're working, and what classes will be impacted in a later question. If it is someone who you are connected with, another teacher in the same class, you share a classroom, a co-teacher, it could be that a community member is applying for a grant for you, totally acceptable under this grant. But I will want to know if you said, hey, I need you to apply for this, or I think it's a good idea, they should have some connection and there's some questions about the teacher that they're connected with or the school or the class as appropriate. If you've received a grant from IPEI in the past, we want to know when those grants were. If you don't remember the exact title of the super creative grant that you worked on a few years ago, that's fine. Just let it give us a general idea. We can find it, but we want to know the types of grants you've applied for in the past. Red and Gold is a one-time grant. That's our goal with Red and Gold, to fund something unique and different. And so we want to know what you've applied for. It helps us to know that we're giving as many grants out as possible.
Steve?
Yes.
Sorry, super quick question. When you say one time, is it one time in your life? One time?
That is a question. And that's one of those interesting ones. Can I turn that over to my experts?
If you're asking for $500 to
upgrade your math stations in your room or something.
okay,
Don't
we'll
ask for
fund
that.
that once.
Yeah.
Oh.
But if
The
you-
next year you wanna update them again, find
Oh,
somebody else.
One time per subject, not
For
per
that,
person.
for that particular
Right.
idea and grant.
I do think you should realize that if they're not saying we only want you to apply once. In fact, the fact that you've gotten grants before does not
No.
at all hinder
Nope.
your ability to get another grant. It's just gotta be for something different.
Okay,
That's all.
all right, thank you.
That's a good question, I appreciate that. So now we talked about criteria, and you have that in front of you. Applicant info and grant history. The section up here I want to identify is the project and program information and the budget overview. So when we talk about, right, all of this stuff, it becomes really important, right now in my teacher voice, to answer all the questions, right? It's really important to answer all of the questions. So we do need the title, we need the easy stuff at the top, right? We need the project in one sentence. Why do I need it in one sentence when you're like, but it's such a great thing and I can't possibly describe it? Because I need to put it on Twitter when we say yes. I need to share out with my board and with my funders very quickly. Hey, this is what your gift to IPEI funded. And they say, can I learn more about that? Yes, you can. I'm gonna send you to Linda, she's gonna tell you all about it, right? So, tell me about the grade level or levels that are impacted. I need to have metrics on my end. Like how many students are impacted by this grant? And the number of children who are directly impacted. Is it 10? Is it 100? The number does not necessarily impact the grant application, so don't, I'm gonna impact 1,000 students. We wanna know that you really thought about where are you going to use this grant, where are you going to use this project, this material. Hi.
And be realistic on the number. I mean, if you're looking for something specifically for your grade level or for your classroom or even a subset of your classroom, that's fine. We get a lot of them that say, oh, the whole school will benefit from this. Yeah, not so much, it really focus on what is your target group.
We get a little more detailed, a little more, we wanna know in the next set of questions. So let us know if other teachers are impacted by this grant. If you are a fourth grade teacher and you're applying for something that will impact all of the fourth grade classes, we wanna know that and it should be reflected in your numbers. And that's important with our criteria of red and gold grants being a one-time grant as we try to understand where our donors' funds are ending up and how much of an impact they're having. Let us know when this is happening, as best as you can. I know that sometimes it might be spring and when we get to it, or in my unit on, and I have an idea, but maybe not an exact date. I would love to try to drop in on the grant. I would love to be able to know that I have a donor who really wants to see something and that helps us make more grants in the future, that I have some dates or and I might reach out and say, can I drop in, or can we take pictures? And that's a piece we'll touch on in a minute. Let us know the subject area. What are the goals of the project or program? Here's where we come to the phrase, how to get to yes. Tell the grants committee, tell the committee of Joyce and Connie and their collected individuals who represent teachers, who represent the administration and the conversation around it, but they also represent major members of the community, right? They represent Cornell, they represent parents. Tell them what the goal of the grant is. What's going to happen because you got these funds? And why is that important? What skills are going to be emphasized specifically is important, right? Students are going to learn more. We've seen it, and yes, they are, I hope. What are they going to learn more, right? How are you going to measure that they learned more? If you told me they're going to learn more, I'm going to try to get at you another way and ask you for specific skills that you're going to measure in a moment. So how are you going to measure that? What are you going to do at the beginning and at the end, right? This sounds like your lesson planning. Yes, it sounds a lot like your lesson planning. How will this project or program enrich your school's curriculum? How does this support the idea of everything that you're doing in the fourth grade, or everything that you're doing in the 10th grade, or school-wide there's an initiative? How does that tie? List the specific activities planned. I think there's a good question by Spencer, about one-time grants. Connie referred to upgrading math software, upgrading materials. So what are you going to do with those materials once we help you acquire them? Specific activities are helpful. Okay? If relevant, so it may not be relevant, this answer might not apply. Elaborate on any cross-grade level. So if there's something you want to take this beyond, or you're talking to another teacher, let us know about that. And the last question. IPEI wants to support innovative ideas, especially with red and gold grants, which are that one-time gift. We can't do that every year to the same class, even though they're different students every year. Joyce and Kai and I have been talking about this all summer. Let us know how you think this project or program could be repeated without the same funding. If it's materials, let us know how you're going to secure those materials so that they can be used again. If it's a project or a program, is there a way that this fills that gap, creates this program, which is then self-sustaining? And perhaps the answer is, I'm not sure. Let us know that. We do want you to think about this question and not simply say, I don't know, it couldn't happen without $500. If it can't happen again, then are we really supporting something innovative and new? How do we get that for more than just the one group that gets it that year, right? And we've all been that teacher. You get that awesome field trip with an awesome speaker in, and the next classes don't get it. And it's great for those kids, We want us to think a little bit, and feel free to reach out and contact us and say, do you have any ideas about question number 13? Because I'm stuck. Okay, like as I think this through.
Tape it.
All right, here's an example. And I'm going to pass around an example right now. This is from Eileen Granger at Caroline Elementary. I should be using this with permission so she knows this is happening. So don't tattle on me. This is an example of a Red Gold grant, and this is going to be the example I use because teacher grants get a lot more complicated than to hand one out. It's about a project for which she needed some materials, so she presented this application, and we receive the applications as they come in. On the day of the deadline, I compile all the applications into a massive packet for my grants committee, and I send it out to the grants committee, and I say, you have 1 week to read all of these and come together, and these wonderful men and women bring notes upon notes. Questions about number 4 on grant number 12, as they've read and thought a lot about what they read. This application, at the end of our discussion about a prior grant, we turned to this one. We looked around the room and said, is there any discussion? Previous to this, there had been 10 minutes, this literally 10 minutes trying to understand the previous grant's impact and who would be impacted, and why are they asking for this, and we want to give the funds out, that's our goal, so how do we get there? The room fell silent, there were no questions, anyone in support of this, the entire room voted yes, and we moved on. At which point, one of the grants committee members paused and looked at me and said, did you notice that there was no discussion? Because she answered every question, and she answered it in a way that we knew exactly what she was doing, and that she knew what she was doing.
And that people who are not teachers knew what she was doing, because most of the committee are not educators.
And when you're rolling through 30 grants, it's really nice to come on. And everybody goes, whoops.
So it is a challenge for you as the applicant to present, to remember that the thing that always frustrated me as a teacher was that assumption of knowledge that everybody knows what all the acronyms are and everybody outside, right, of the education world. And when you just come into a new version or you're new to a school, you have to learn all their lingo. The people reading these grants don't necessarily know the lingo or the theory or even the day-to-day life of a teacher. So help them get to yes by just being as clear as possible.
But they are very, very good at the internet. If they don't know, it's amazing, we have people on the board who come in and say, well, I Googled that, you know what, I found out that, and we're like, really? They really do their homework on everything you
Absolutely.
mentioned.
So this is an example for you of a very direct grant. Notice we have grade level, the simple questions, right, the fact numbers, and then some dates, February, March, so we have some initial time. And this was a longer activity, so there was some time we talked about going and visiting. Goals of the project. In your own words, tell us what your goals are and why you're doing this thing. And just broken down, right? Specific activities. We're going to do something, so like a verb at the front, right? Something that the students are doing. Okay, there wasn't a cross-grade connection for this activity. Hey, that's a touch screen.
I actually think there was, because I don't think she has 49 kids in her classroom.
I think it was for the first grade. Yeah, so I think that was kind of a place where we could have said, wait a minute, I'm going backwards now. I'm sorry about that. I'm going forward. That's so touch screen got me. Okay, and then it would be possible to do the same art project next year, right, without the guidance and assistance of the artist, because we watched them do it. In previous iterations of these types of grants, IPEI funded mindfulness training for students, especially at the elementary level, and part of the conversation that went on around more and more of those grants was, are we bringing someone in to do a one-day training for the students, or is there an aspect of training the teacher to do this in the future? right? Because that answers our number 12, or our number 13. Thoughts or questions about Red Gold grants? You can pause. In the teacher grant, I'll talk more about the budget piece, so to kind of, so I said they're very similar, I'll identify the different pieces of each one.
That's a question, what, just out of interest in the general funding sense, what's wrong with funding the same thing every year?
That's an excellent question.
We can't afford it.
Yeah.
If you, how much are you donating lately? Checkbook? I mean, we work our butts
Oh, yeah,
off
no,
getting
no,
money, but you know.
I didn't mean just.
I understand.
No, but I think that's the flip answer of it is,
Yeah. I mean, if you have an artist, great artist coming every year, well, the kids in this example, $300.
we would like, you know, where's the district picking this up? If this is a great artist and it's relevant to your classroom and it's relevant to the school system, then maybe you need to point that out to the district level. And that's what's great to have Liddy Cole there, because many of the things that have come in, we turn around and say, this isn't us, this is you. And she said, you know what? You're right. Or you know what, I'll look into that. Or did this
Tell
teacher?
this teacher to call me, I will pay for it.
Yeah, or she said, you know, did they ever ask me? They never asked me. I can fund this, you know, and things like that. So sometimes it rolls around that way, but I think the bottom line is you just, every teacher who wants everything every year is impossible for us.
And I've spoken up about this at almost every
Yep.
community meeting throughout the year, and how frustrating it is to not have them take something on, because, you know, you're one little piece of a pie, and if it's not a district initiative, then, and I even kind of proved to them last May that like some of the things that they were seeing come across for the last few years still are not the initiatives that were then being promoted this summer by PD. So that's what causes the frustration. Deb just said that, you know, like Cornell does the same thing, where if a grant dries up, it doesn't mean the board of Cornell thinks it's something that they should keep.
Yeah, this is just NSF
Right.
grants, same thing.
So, and I've
Really
spoken
great
up,
programs sometimes, and.
so I have spoken up on behalf of all of you, saying like, this is why they need it. Our teachers need clay because we can never seem to get the board to double the budget for clay. And so, and I know you guys have struggled with it too, because you're seeing the need and the great projects come
And
out of it.
also, the way our budgets go, like for big equipment and materials, they really don't write them into being able to use our money that's allocated to us to buy the things we need. Like especially
See,
big
we're
equipment.
more liable to fund a big piece of equipment if it's under $500.
That's the
because-
problem, is it's usually
Yeah.
not
Yes,
dollars.
I understand, but it's something
Maybe
that,
to the
but
community
it's
member.
something that we know would be used over and over.
Well, I mean, for example, I know we needed to update our calendar, and I know that we had a fire truck come to Wayton Middle School this year because there was a problem with the thing. They should be digitalized.
And here's
Couple
Linda probably saying,
$1,000.
yes, I've
It's a
asked for it.
safety protocol, you know, and it's really hard.
I think the other examples I would give you though are, we've gone through, you know, the Hangar Theater, Mitch and Martha, the Storytellers, the Vitamin L. We literally, our budget would be gone on those 3 programs alone if we funded every one of them every year. I think for Vitamin L, we've said, what, once every 5 years
Yeah,
or
we
something?
tried to put some parameters.
Your school can have it once every 5 years. We figure that'll hit everybody once.
Yes, they roll through in
Um,
elementary school.
You know, and there are other projects that we look at. We funded a lot of mindfulness training. We really did. And we finally said to the district, you know what? We think teachers are dying for mindfulness training. Why don't you write a Connecting Classrooms grant? We'd like to see everybody have the opportunity for the training, not just those that know somebody or have the time to do a grant, and that everybody was getting the same language and the same cues. We didn't hear anything. It's not a priority. We're trying to support teachers. That may at times mean that we're supporting district initiatives, but I hope that it means we're supporting projects that will enrich kids. And probably first priority in my mind are projects that enrich curriculum.
And with that, the teacher grants, which are available for larger numbers, up to $1,500, are available for a series of 3 years. So if you write and receive a teacher grant, you can receive that 3 times
Yes.
for the same program. So that is an option because we value the connection, the community classroom connection that grant requires, and we'll talk about that right now. Alright, so looking at, these are the same application sections, but I want to identify the partner info and why that's a piece, and that works well with our conversation that just happened. And then talk about the budget, which applies to both grant applications, okay? So in our partner information, first we go with the easy stuff. Name, address, phone number, and email. How could I contact this partner if I needed to do that? Working with BOCES, and I know that for some people that creates a tension inside, I understand that feel. Working very closely with Sunny Miller at BOCES this year. She has worked diligently on her side to speed up the BOCES process by first digitizing it, and secondly, visiting with teachers and principals, putting those 2 individuals in a room and saying, you fill out this form, hit send, you, principal, sign this form, hit send. And she has it. The other piece of what she needs for a partnering through BOCES, which is how we can return funds to the school and begin to have more funds allocated for maybe a kiln, is the name, address, email, because she's building this book of partners, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. But also she needs to be able to invoice them later. Because with BOCES, and if our teacher grants can run through BOCES, we are attempting to do so because it does bring money, additional funds back to the schools. She needs that information, there's paperwork that the vendor has to do. And they have to be able to do it after the fact, right? They can't get paid in advance in order for BOCES to work its magic for additional funds. And we have lots of conversations around that, should that situation arise.
Is there anybody who doesn't understand what Steve is saying
Yeah,
about
it's-
BOCES and the funds coming back? Yeah.
Sure. So things I've learned in the last year. New York State, in an attempt to incentivize school districts to create collective points of work together, like printing, for example, has constructed a series of routes for funding through what they call BOCES, right? And so if you can run funding from a school district, and that would include a grant from a group like IPEI, because we give the money to the district when it's at a $1,500 or $1,000 level. If they can run those funds through a specific COSER, and that's an acronym for I don't know what, but exactly. I don't know. So it's the funnel of funds that allows the state to then say, because you partnered with an artist, right, and you supported arts or science or math, and you ran your funds through this specific line item, they will give back in the next budget year a certain percentage of that funds. And this year it was 42 cents on the dollar, and it changes year to year. But if we're running several $1,000s through, the district receives that back in the next year for similar type programs. So if it was arts enrichment or math or partnering with science, they've got that additional funding.
I'm
Yes,
confused, Vernon.
go ahead.
Because if you're giving the money,
Yeah.
you're not getting the money back, the district's getting it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
right. New York State funds
It
it back,
actually,
goes to your school.
So,
And
right.
where's our school representative that has this pile of money?
it's in your principal's
It's in your
discretionary.
principal's,
So,
it's his
that's a
discretionary.
really,
Is that the special equipment budget
I
line
don't know,
that
it'd be a good thing for
that
us to
exists
talk
only when you
about
beg for it?
with the administration is what are they doing to then use that funds to help maybe offset the cost of interest and
Because I know when
keep
Connie and
afford-
I were teaching,
If you go to Trump.
Boynton, it,
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
but it's not something known.
A lot of
It's like you
times-
have to really beg,
Yeah, but a
plead,
lot-
and
a lot of times we could get our projects through because that was, we were old enough to even be pre-IPEI. But anyway, the principal simply just me, just because we said, oh, this is kosher, you know, you can get it, and boy, that lit up lights because they knew, and at that point it was like 60 cents on a dollar, or something crazy. So in the following year, Boynton would get back money, you know, not the teacher themselves, but the school into the principal's omits that amount of money, you know, that could be used again. And boy, that makes a difference.
And Gina, to kind of get at what I've learned, is that it is a decision by the district to put the onus on the school principal to do the BOCES work. The district does receive the money, and there are districts, and I know this because Sunny, who I work with, she works with 9 different districts, doing all this paperwork for all of them. Some districts hold on to that money and keep it as their arts funds for later, their science funds for later, and use that for their own math. This district has decided, pro and con, to make it the onus of the principal, and Sunny and I have spent a lot of time with principals, kind of sometimes easing the road for this and making sure that they understand it does require 2 more steps, right? You're gonna apply to IPEI, you're gonna apply to Fine Arts Booster, we're gonna say yes. You're then gonna have to cut and paste 4 items from your application into a BOCES form. Well, Sunny put it online, so you can literally cut and paste, and we'll sit next to you to help you do this. It immediately emails to the principal has to approve it. And then it's done. And on the other end, the vendor, the buyer, has to agree to invoice after the fact. So those 2 pieces, as long as everybody's in line, it moves pretty quick, because I'm the one holding the check and I'm ready to give it to the district. And we're working on the time frame so that there's not months of delay. But it is up to the
Is there a
principals.
way to work around vendors that will not do that? Cause I know with ceramic stuff, they will
Right.
not do that.
So that's a really good question. We can split a fund in terms of if it's a teacher grant, and part of this can go through the BOCES COSER. This is where our work with Sunny has been amazing. She has said, I can take $1,000 of this $1,500 grant and go through the COSER and get that 40 cents on the dollar back, pay this vendor, and then the $500 the school will buy. We do give the money to the district. You would place the order through the district, or we work that out. So we can divide that grant in that way.
Also, depending on your community partner, if your community partner, say, is, I'm gonna say an artist from Cornell, just arbitrarily. If they're willing to buy the clay, then that whole thing goes in their fee and the whole thing becomes BOCES-able. On a $1,500 grant, you're talking over $600 will come back to your school the following year. So
And
it
that's
makes your grant, it really compounds your grant.
And that's a lot on the vendor, and we've heard that conversation, right? Because we're asking them to put out a lot, so that's why we're able and willing to split that grant, should we reach that spot. But that's in terms of you asked for $1,500, $500 for materials, $1,000 for the expert. That makes sense to us, and we will work on the math to help you do that. And Sunny reads all of our grants, not as a voting member of our grants committee, but as this is aidable, this is maybe aidable, this is not aidable, but that doesn't, we don't vote based on that. And which gets me to my other point about the partners. She's been collecting a book of partners who are willing and able to work, 1 with BOCES and 2 with schools. So if you say, I have this amazing idea, I don't know who, in terms of ceramics and those types of things, we might have somebody who's already done a project similar and that she has access to. And she's posted that book online. I can share it with you when I get back to my office and find an email to have that link.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think for where we're at in the high school and the middle school, unfortunately, I think these grants don't work for us right now, because until we can get our equipment upgraded to the point where we can use it
Sure.
regularly, there's no point in bringing in an expert to work with anyone. You know, unfortunately, because it puts too much stress on teachers needing to come in, you know, all day long and change temperatures on a kiln, and it's not fair.
No, I hear all that, and I've done ceramic work. My brother he had a kiln. It was quite an experience.
So we have to figure out a way to get our school to upgrade our equipment first.
And we can talk about that if we can be.
That'd be awesome.
Back to here, the community partner, we asked this question, which kind of gets at what Gina's saying, right? This is why we need to know here, this community partner segment, why this person, right? This is different than a red and gold grant. I want this program, I want to do this thing. This partner is valuable because you are amazing educators, you are skilled artists at what you do. That doesn't mean you know everything. right? This person knows the thing I don't know and my students need to learn it from them, is a way to start to tackle that question. Why is that person important? Teacher grants do require that community partner. And we are putting on our website in the next couple of days a link to the book that BOCES already put together for us. And it's organized by name, it's organized by topic, by skills. There's a variety of ways to search it. If you have a great idea and you just want that partner.
Well, in both colleges, most of those departments they are looking for outreach.
Yeah.
So if you can find a connection that meets your need, again, that's something you can build on and replicate for 3 years.
And am I correct in the new application, the partner is asked to comment on the project?
After the project.
Right.
We are asking in the final piece that I'll talk about our impact, we asked the partner what they got out of it, just to gather that information as well. I want to talk for a minute about the budget, because the other area of not answering all the questions of the details, right, what the project's all about, that is troublesome for the grants committee on our end, is understanding what the anticipated costs are. So I pulled a summary from the overview, which is the same as you have, and it's basically identical in both grants. It just says teacher grants in one and grants in all the other. So the budget helps the grants committee recognize that you've thought through all of the dollars and all of the cents behind these budget items, and that you know where they're going to go, all right? Anything that's identified as having a cost in your narrative, where you answer those questions in sentence form, should be identified on the budget. And things that are identified on the budget should be in your narrative. And what I mean by that is we've seen grant applications where I'm bringing in an expert, they're going to cost $900. We will also buy other supplies, $600. Like, I need to know a little bit more than that. So if it's mentioned in one, it should be identified in the other if there's a cost involved. Okay. Also, if there are other places, we know people sometimes group grants, right? Fine Arts Booster Group grants and IPEI grants often go hand in hand. You may have received a grant from Cornell or somewhere else. Someone else is donating to PTA. We just want to know what we're a part of in terms of this. It does not have a negative or positive. We want to know that you're thinking through all of the funding. If you're asking for a new kiln, right, I know that's a point of contention, but you're asking for 500 or 1,500, but we know that's not going to even touch where we are. But you have 2 other grants as well. We just want to know that we're being a part of the whole project so that we can say the project can be completed in a year.
Yeah, so if you find a place to get a $500 grant, another 1,000, or 500, and that gets you a kiln, we're like, ooh. And she's already acquired this grant from this person, we would be part of this.
And I don't know what the Fine Arts Booster Grant dates are.
15th of October and the 15th of February or March.
I think a big problem is there's not a lot of grants out there for equipment.
That is very true.
And we'll fund
And the
equipment.
Fine Arts won't do equipment,
I don't think so.
but we
Right.
often fund something that they funded, so
Yeah,
it becomes a
yeah,
$1,000 project, they
yeah.
put up 500, we put up 500.
So let's talk, because I think we can,
Figure it out.
we'll support you in a way that we can find a way to do it as best we
And we'll remind Jeff that he's
Yeah.
got BOCES money on that.
can. I have a meeting with him hopefully soon.
And I'll tell you, when I read grants, I read the title and the front page and whatever, I never read the narrative till I flip to the budget first. And I look at the budget and I say, okay, this is what they're asking for, explain it to me now. And then I read the narrative and hopefully they do it that way.
So the budget looks like this. If you do the online form, you have lots of individual options. You add the item. You literally get 3 questions like this. 1, 2, 3 in our online form. If you want to type it in the Word document, that is fine as well. And it just asks you that over and over, and it asks at the bottom, are you done? And if you're not done, just keep doing it for up to 20 different items that you're spending money on. So we have this kind of formal language, and then Connie and Joyce and I sat down and said, okay, what are you paying for, right? How much does it cost? Who or where are you paying or purchasing, right? If it's a person, where's the money going? And that's really important on my end, because I start cutting checks in all sorts of different directions, or have to tell the district with these teacher grants where they cut all these sub-checks. If you have other sources that can go there as well. We do like, if you're buying, I made this up, kind of marine guidebooks, okay, this is what I'm doing, and you have them on Amazon because you just want to buy it, you love using Prime, it's your favorite thing to do. Include that link for me. Why? Because my team's gonna Google it anyway. If you give us the link, we know exactly what you're looking for, rather than us finding something similar. But you've decided that this is what you want, so that helps. They're gonna find it anyway, and they'll say, but it's not that much, because they do the math. Joyce will add them up and see if she says they want
Connie's
50.
my end.
Connie will have them.
It's insulting when you ask for $500 and it only totals $400. It really is. Also,
What do you
The
mean, what do you
district-
mean by that?
people list their supplies, they're asking for $500. They
Doesn't
list
total
everything,
500.
and it doesn't total $500.
So if it's like $498 or not
Nobody
Yeah.
cares about
But
490.
some people write it for 400 and then list it as 400, right?
Yes.
Right.
And that would be the right way.
Right,
The
right.
district does not like Amazon.
No, I know.
Actually, they've
however,
worked that out.
They've changed that this
Okay.
year.
Okay.
The
Oh,
district
tell us
now,
more.
I know you're excited. The district now has a non-profit tax exempt order through Amazon
Okay.
available to
Yeah. Just happened.
I know nothing else other than that. But I have confirmed that several times with different people, so that happened over the course of last year and should be available. I know that we've seen teachers choose to say, I want a red and gold grant and buy all my stuff on Amazon, and they'll $450 worth of stuff, $50 worth of shipping. And other teachers say, I want $500 worth of stuff and I'll pay the shipping. I've been on both sides as the classroom teacher.
Shipping's free.
If it's
Right,
Prime.
$25.
Does that have
That
to
was
decision
making?
making?
Or sales tax, I'm sorry, also
Sales
sales tax.
Yeah.
Sales tax.
No,
Higher end?
No, it does not. No, that's a good question, and that does not, that's, the question was, would that impact decision
Right, like
making?
if we were willing to pay for the shipping instead of asking it from you guys, is that?
It helps us to see what you're thinking about, and what you're doing.
Who knows subconsciously what I thought about that,
But,
but
and if that's what
Don't
that
get
other
into
$100
Joyce's
is,
subconscious, it's just gonna
tell me.
end
Because I kid you not, people come in and they go, this second grade teacher has asked for 5 books here that I know are 5th or 6th grade reading level. And it's like, okay, why? So then poor Adam is doing dance and.
I'll tell you, this budget is not complete as you see it up there. There's no way that I would okay floating classroom hours 1,000 without more specifics on what's happening, what you're paying. And that may be in the narrative, but it's always nice to include that in the budget. Same with the marine books. I need 50 books at $10 a book,
So as much information as you can give me in different ways, right? People learn in different ways, people get information in different ways. Get it into the budget, get it into the narrative. You're gonna tell me how much you're requesting from us first. For red and gold, it shouldn't be more than 500, for a teacher grant, it shouldn't be more than 15. And then the estimated total budget. If it's more than 15, but you have other sources, that's fine. It may be that your project is gonna cost $2,200. That's fine, but we wanna know that so that we know what we're getting ourselves involved in and what we're supporting.
And we wanna know that you have the rest of the money.
And that's for that other column, and we wanna know where it's coming from. You can, be in touch and make sure it all happens.
Is this the time to talk about expert fees?
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Can you
I wanna-
remind me one thing,
I can.
when you do cut the checks, are they made out to us? Cause
So-
I kind of remember, I
Not
don't
for
remember,
teacher grant.
okay, cause I kind of remember in the past, and maybe it was Fine Art Boosters grant, having to deposit in my own savings account, which was really a pain in the.
Yep, I hear that. Red and gold grants, we will have a conversation quickly with the teacher. Typically, depending on what it is, different teachers wanna do things different. Some would rather they're gonna order through Amazon on their own, they just want it in their savings account. So we cut the check directly to them for $500 or less. Some teachers, it goes right to a vendor, okay, we can do that. Anything above $600 could be classified as taxable income, and I do not want to bump you into a new tax bracket. So, we will be giving that money to the district, who can then cut you a check. We'll have that process all outlined after the application is completed and approved. That's my job. I'll reach out and say, let's make sure I know where this money is going, and it may be cut to you, it may be cut directly to the vendor. We'll talk about that process.
Thank you.
No problem. I want to talk for just a minute about rubric creation, which is the last sort of piece of the application, and another spot where we sometimes get hung up. And this is the impact form. See, did I miss the rubric? It's in there. See some people got to it. In the application online, you're going to be asked, identify 3 goals that you'll measure at the end of the grant. Okay? And then when you get the form back, the application is a Google form or the document you see in front of you as a Word document. If you do the Google form, it's going to ask you 3 questions, list one, list one, list one. When you get the form back, it'll all be pre-populated for you, okay? And they'll be in the chart with a bunch of questions below it. So if you're looking on the sheets today, there are other questions that you can't answer until afterwards. So we're not asking you to evaluate before the grant. This is really important for my grants committee. It comes from that narrative idea. What's the goal of this? What is a curriculum goal of the project or the program? What is a student skill and another student skill? So 3 different things that you're gonna tell me what change you've seen after the program. So we're thinking about, this is my project, this is where we are right now. What is something I could say was not observed, right? Maybe I was wrong. And I think that's okay as we learn ourselves, oh, we didn't actually see that student skill or the 3rd skill. I'm beginning to see it, I'm consistently observing it. You'll fill that out afterwards. I want to talk about it today because this is a spot where our grants committee goes, they don't really know how they're going to evaluate it. That especially ties to things where you're buying products, right? Where you're buying, what is the thing that this product will help your students do that they couldn't do before or without it?
So
We'll
it's one
identify those
curriculum
goals.
goal, but
One-
2 skills, not 3 goals.
And that, you can use your own language. You do not have to cut and paste the standard
Please
42A
don't.
point
Please
6. It actually helps because the committee doesn't know all the standards to use your own language. And using your own language, you're thinking with the end in mind, or designing backwards here, what are you gonna observe, what are you not gonna observe?
The reason that these are up here though is that this allows us then to gather some data over a couple of years to be able to say to our donors, 95% of our grants are furthering curriculum. Or are helping develop, we've seen these student skills. So we're not doing this to be punitive. The whole point is for us
Only
to
if it
gather
feels
data that will
Remember what-
Get more
convince,
money, that's
that will convince our donors to give us more money.
So that we can turn around and give it to you.
Alright, so I already talked about these guys, rubric creation. We wanna know you thought about the program. Let's go. Alright, so some common mistakes to avoid, right? And then I'll kind of wrap up and take some questions. Incomplete forms, you just didn't answer questions. You're gonna get the form back. So the Google version requires all the required questions, so you'll have trouble getting through it if you don't answer that, trying to help people out. When you get it back, it is locked. I can edit it, and so we can talk, and if you need to change something before the application deadline, I'm fine with all of those things. Not telling a story, right? It came out from my conversation where I got the 4 W's of grant writing. Good grant applications tell a story. Like, what is the thing that your students, your classroom, your school is going to be able to do that it can't do without this? Grab my attention, tell a story. You're not sharing, like, what's happening. If you're not giving me the information I need. Your budget math doesn't add up. It's like, it makes cotton math. If your budget doesn't include all the information mentioned in the narrative, right? And vice versa. Your narrative doesn't include all the information mentioned in the budget. An informal tone. You are writing to ask a group of people you do not know, or some you may know, who are evaluating this for funds to support your classroom, to support your school. Flippant tones, and we've gotten a few, will kind of turn the pool off, even if the idea is good, right? They take their volunteer time very seriously. All of our grants people give hours of their time. And so it's helpful and helpful to you and beneficial to you to be formal and you know, we're not looking for Shakespeare, but we are thinking about the way we're presenting ourselves. If at the end of your application, the reader has questions, like how's this gonna work? Or what's the goal? Or I know they're writing a teacher grant and I know they're gonna do floating classroom, but I don't know anything about floating classroom, so I don't really know what that means. If there are those questions, if we don't know who's involved, if we don't know what the goal is, or how we're gonna measure it, how we're gonna do it, that's a mistake that'll lead away from the committee saying yes.
And if it's something that, you gotta remember, we are all not up to date on what's happening in the school system. And if it's something new and innovative that you've come up with and you want to purchase this item for the classroom, and I may not be a techie person and not understand it all as I'm reading my narrative, though hopefully I'll explain. Put a link in so that I can click and go online and read about this particular thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really helps, to be able to read about it and you go, oh, wow, this is so cool. So, you know, we're just not,
None of us know everything.
none of us know everything,
And
but some of us know.
having Adam and Woody in our meetings has helped us increase our level of understanding of what's happening in the classrooms uniquely and in the district writ large, all of those things.
There are some things we don't routinely pay for. We really don't wanna pay for busing. So you need to talk to your principal. I would hope you are supposed to go over with your principal everything you're asking for to make sure that they have not got the resources to provide it for you. But busing is top of the list. Shirts, generally those are celebratory. Occasionally, somebody has made a good argument for why a group of kids need shirts. This happened to be a group on the playground that kids would go to for mediation or whatever, and they needed to be able to identify them. We bought those shirts, but generally, not shirts. After school stuff, generally no. However, Boynton or DeWitt came up with a great project that was gonna involve some of their, I'm gonna say it wrong, aren't I, ESOL population.
It's ENL now, but
Yes, I do.
that acronym is
Changes
so-
every other year. But, so, you know, if you could make a strong case, and that was an outstanding grant application we did. And the last one is food. Most of the time, people want food for celebrations or culminating activities. However, Boynton had a project where they were trying new foods at lunchtime to expose kids to different, that was an outstanding application. Somebody in the high school wanted to expose the French class to French foods and worked with Cultivare. We paid for that. You wanna do ice cream sundaes as a celebration, when you're done, talk to Purity, maybe they'll fund it, we will.
The one thing that we know has happened, and I shared this with them, is that we've often talked with building administrators, and the answer back is, why don't you apply for an IPEI grant? To get a simple supply. And so that's something we have to always then bring back and say, well, remember, the grant isn't that simple to just get a supply. Like these people, you know, this board's committee really looking at these and not just granting, you know.
Well,
some-
and maybe you can go and say, you know, I think I can get some funding if you come up with the rest.
Right,
You know, that,
but we've all heard that, right? I mean, that's, well, maybe you can do it through that. So, that's good.
you know, I think everybody is making tough decisions, and having sat on the Board of Education, I can sympathize with that. I would much rather hire teachers than buy stuff, but it's hard to teach if you don't have the stuff. And so, you know, we like to fill in the holes when we can, but I think everybody is stretched to the limit. We can't fund it all, and neither can the district.
While I have a group of people here, I want to talk for just a moment about our third grant opportunity. has the least detailed first round of the application, so it's pretty easy. So the purpose of this grant, which I identified, to encourage collaboration and innovation. These are our Connecting Classrooms grants. The questions we asked in the initial round is it innovative? Right? So what does that mean? Innovative approaches to learning, preparing students for a more dynamic world, new techniques or substantive change in the way that students learn and in general education. Is it collaborative? Right? It's about working together. It's one of the taglines of this grant. Applicants applying for funding should have a cadre of adults teaming up to create a project. Those adults can be within the same school. Those adults can be across schools. Another example of a Connecting Classrooms grant is the Bell Sherman's Nature Trail, which has been a project now going into year 3. But we have funded that almost to $10,000 over the 3 years to build not only the physical plant around the outdoor trail and the space, but funding time for teachers to meet with experts and create lessons that are experience-driven so that all the students have these same experiences each year. And so this grant includes funding for teacher planning time, unlike our other grants. The purpose, I mentioned, who can apply, needs to be a teacher or a staff member. This application is very simple in one way. You're gonna give me who you are or your staff member's information, and you're gonna write me 250 words saying what you wanna do. I'm gonna bring that to Connie and Joyce and their grants committee, and they're gonna read it. We called it a letter of interest, so get our interest. If we like it and we wanna know more, that committee will assign a board member to reach out to you along with myself and say, we're gonna do 30 school days, 30, and that's like a month and a half in like real world time. 30 school working days to get a formal proposal that we can read and edit and we go back and forth and share to understand what this project entails and to really think about this grant, because this grant, unlike the other 2 that we've talked about at length, is approved by my executive board, by a full board of directors, because it was designed to be a much larger and impacting grant. So we want to give you the best shot at it. So the first round is you're just going to send me a statement of interest, a letter of interest. This is what I want to do. Keep it short, grab our attention. Is it innovative? Who's it impact? How's it collaborative? Right? All the criteria is on our webpage. And then we'll have about a month where you'll get to work with IPEI staff, myself, volunteer board member, to help craft that. So if you're looking for something that's a larger amount, we can make an argument that it impacts across classrooms or schools, then this may be an opportunity for you. I just did a lot of talking over my time, I apologize. But thank you for being here. What can I do for you? I'm over my half hour, like I thought I could do this for a space and a half an hour. That was a joke to myself. I think that was possible. What can I do for you? What can I help you with? What can I make available to you? Nothing great, I think.
Would it be helpful
What can Connie enjoy?
to have more examples online?
Okay.
Way back in the dark ages, we used to actually have a binder in the library in each school with examples, many of them from your school and whatever, so that you could thumb through them and see
That
some.
sounds stupid.
But that's what's, yes.
We do have a list of all of our grants
Well,
running
with the
back.
description.
Now that's not, and there are some descriptions. I can also make available some applications if it would be helpful to you. I can put a few applications. I want to check in with those teachers to make sure that they know that their names are going out. But on our webpage, under our grants tab, 50 days. All right. We do have a list of our archive, and these are grants going back as far as 2006 to 2007. Just by school and by title of grant to help you.
Click on one of those.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Do you have a year? Do you want me to pick
No.
one? A particular year?
So we can see what's.
Sure. So some of it, in every year, they're done by a different volunteer. So sometimes they look a little different. The most recent output have like the one sentence description that I asked for, so sometimes that helps learn a little bit more. And I will make available and send out to you, I may pass a piece of paper around as you give me your emails today, and I'll send out to everybody here, 1 or 2 applications that we received in the last year, to give you some insight on what that looks like. I can make that happen. What did I miss? What can they take away from this? If there's any.
If you're working with an artist, a teacher grant, we're really struggling with how much to allow you to pay people per hour. If it's an honorarium, you're acknowledging, it's a small thank you there, but there are other cases where you really have people who charge by the hour. If it's more than what's stated on the application, and as I say, we're still fighting about this, but I think 60 is the top amount that's on there right now, isn't it?
It was 35.
$60 an hour.
60.
If they're charging more than that, you need to justify that. You need, and they should be able to help you do that with some type of resume or something like that. Some of them are very expensive. Visiting authors are outrageously expensive, which was why it was so nice to be able to do it with multiple schools. And then it qualified as a Connected Classrooms grant. So we got BOCES aid, we got teachers working together, we got one artist that was visiting several schools over a short period of time, so we saved money on transportation. So that's where a Connected Classroom grant becomes very valuable.
Was African drums also?
Yeah, the African drums was like that too, if you remember that, you know, it doesn't have to be cross-grade, but for those, and the Connected Classroom grants, I don't know that we wanna show you those. We've tried to make that vague for a reason, because we think you're gonna think outside anything that we would, and if we
That's
put
why
too much
there's
of
no
an
app, yeah.
application, we're
Yeah.
defining the box.
Tell us, get us interested in the big project, and then we'll work together to present that to our board. We have a pot of money there, and you know, I think the plan was to spend it down much more quickly than has happened.
The
So-
first year we spent a lot more than we've spent since then.
That's
I like the idea with the bigger grant of the back and forth and the sort of mentoring aspect of that. Is there, obviously the grants are much smaller, you don't want to waste too much time with that, but is there an idea that you could, if you do a red and gold or a teacher grant, you could try and get it in like a week or so early, and if you see it right away?
I love everything about that idea.
Is that not possible?
Absolutely possible, absolutely possible. And one of 2 things can happen. You can submit your grant a week early. It comes directly to my email. I stylize anything I have to change for my committee, and I will send you a note back and you'll get here's a copy of your grant. If you want to talk about it, or you want me to read it, ask me to read it, or I can even, my volunteers on the grants committee who would love to read it and give you initial feedback. It will not surprise you as classroom teachers to know that 50% of my applications are gonna come in at 11:59 on the deadline. That will not surprise you at all. Get in a week beforehand, we can start 2 weeks, we've got a lot of time between now and January or October. We certainly can talk about, where we think we can improve it or make it stronger for the community.
Yeah, because if it comes in on the deadline, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right,
We
sure.
used to, in that
Chase.
week that is to chase. We used to chase, we don't chase anymore. It's like, it's a grant application. We need to just have it done for what you're doing.
I want you to think of it as a sales pitch. And you need to be convincing and you need to educate people. I can think of one where somebody wanted a piece of equipment because she wanted them all to match and they went, we don't think having something matching is as important as people who don't have some things. Well, it turned out she really didn't have any of these.
She just said,
If she'd asked for, I don't have any of these, we're like, well, how can you exist without these? We would have paid for them. And so she wanted to justify it and then have us review it, and it's like, no.
Justification came after the fact, because we do try to respond to people who we don't move forward with their application with very specific ways to present that information, maybe other people who are available to fund this type of program, explanations of what our rationale was. I spent our grants meeting taking lots of notes, pros and cons before the vote, so that we
It's
have.
never easy to write those.
And Joyce and I
No.
spend a lot of time.
Joyce and Connie's been lots.
And then they come back and say, oh, well, if you knew this, would you now fund it? It's like, no, committee's not gonna meet again, you know?
We're done. So just assume that they're stupid, assume that they are not educators. They will research. You give them a link, they'll go to it. And they're like, well, if we buy this equipment, how are they gonna store it?
Right, this is
Yeah.
expensive stuff, or they have a lock cabinet or blah, blah, blah.
That's,
They come up with them. And then everybody's worried about, does that mean fire code? Does that mean, do you need a special permit, for that
There's
kind of
only
thing?
one thing about the fire code.
It's crazy, but getting it in earlier and saying, Steve, or Joyce or whatever,
Yeah,
can
send
you
it
just
to me, and
review
if I
this
have time
and
or-
see if
or
there's any
Connie or
comments?
Joyce or any of the grants committee would be willing to take a look, I would say.
if you've never had a grant from us, I believe that you will be asked to get permission from all the parents for kids to be photographed, so that can be used with our PR stuff.
Right, and
And
that's a really tricky thing, I will admit up front. At the beginning of the year, you're gonna have collecting all those photo permissions that go to the office, and it's done. We aren't covered by that form. I'm working on that, but for right now, we are not covered by the ICSD media release form. So for any grant, if we wanted to drop by and take a few pictures of kids doing things with our donors' funds, so that we could send them back to the donors to continue this process, we need a separate form, which is really complicated, and I'm working on it, in terms of just, you need to get another form back. But it helps us in the long run, so that's why we're such a pain in the butt now.
Yeah, it really does. Our PR committee and people are like, oh, you sure they got permission? I wanna use this. I want this to be the cover of our brochure. I want something, it's like, whoa, don't put it out there
I
yet.
will spend weeks hunting down the 4 kids in an amazing picture to check with their parents, that's, and if there was an easier way to do it, I'm hoping we can find one, working on it.
But we do like that kind of feedback. It's wonderful to even show the committee and, these are the picnic benches that we built that is now outside in the school and these are the kids using them for lunch and something else, It's always great to have those sent in with your completed form.
And
But
as
that's the last thing.
And as a final piece, in the last third of the application, you're asked to create 3 goals. When you receive your completed application back, it'll include a full-page impact report. We need that report after the grant is done.
And we will harass you.
My wonderful assistant, Kalendra, will send you almost daily updates coming up to June 30th. The rule that we're establishing is people who can't get those reports in may not be eligible for the next year for grant application. They're really open-ended, what'd you see, what'd you learn, what went well, what didn't. Teacher grants, we are gonna try to get some feedback from partners, because sometimes we get some great quotes and we can use all that material. But that's a piece, and we will remind you of that as time moves forward, that needs to be done as well.
And we know as teachers, it's just difficult there at the end. We ask that they be completed 30 days after your project is finished, but some other unit is rolling in and everything else. But then by June 30th, we all know what that month is like. And so it's a real easy application. And I type to people, this is a ridiculous reason to not be able to get a grant next year. I said, it's really not that difficult.
You've done the hard part,
You've
because you've
done-
already defined the rules.
You've done the goals, you have to put the check marks in, a few questions, and you're done, just send it in. So that's.
Would it help for us to meet with you individually and talk about
Yeah,
what you're thinking
individual
about?
questions.
Do you have ideas on what you might want to do?
Throw them out and we can all.
Or well, I'm gonna sit around, I'll be here for a little while. If you wanna think about it, check your real world email, do those types of things. Thank you for your time, I know it's really valuable, I know it's the last of your waning hours here. And I hope this has been valuable for you. I will be in communication, don't hesitate to email me or call me.
This one in particular.
Email is sometimes best because if I'm running around,
She's received.
I also have a 1.5-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I'm between drop-offs and pickups and things like that. So, but I'll check my email all the time and I'll send you my cell, we can talk all about the cards, you can listen to them sing in the back. Thank you again. And thank you, Joyce and Connie.
And we're here if anybody wants to.
Anybody wants to
You wanna
chat
talk to us
we'll
about
stick
your
around.
ideas?
And hopefully we'll be at your school faculty meetings.
Yeah.
Steve will have a quick down and dirty
Yep,
thing to remind teachers, which is like this year, right, we moved it up to October 11th. It used to be November 4 or something. But first application grant is due October 11, and you know that's tomorrow, really. It is, though, so we're a little nervous about how that's gonna roll, but we'll see.
we're hoping we can get funds to you for something
Sooner.
to do in December.
You know, it's good news, bad news, because you really want, this is me wanting more rolling things, but if you don't get it until November 4th, you can't do anything until you get
December.
it, we're in December, it's crazy. But by October 11th, maybe, you know, you can have something going, and by the way, we also consider grant ideas that just drop in your lap and are a gift from somewhere somehow, like this person, or this, I can get this, or I come up with this idea. We have done grants out of the box in terms of due dates, but, you know, there's gotta be a good reason for that kind of thing. But it is not impossible, just keep that in mind. I know, it's a small group.
Yeah, they won't talk to anyone.
I'm not saying it, they're just gonna keep it for themselves.
Thank you so much, Spencer.
I've had just a couple of things, just thinking over about the whole process. I didn't know anything about that money back from both these things, I'm sure most people probably didn't. And the fact that it comes back to the schools and how do we potentially have access to that next, I don't know,
Oh, man.
if we even
Myself in
do.
trouble.
I feel like that's something people should know about.
Well, we've spoken to Sunny, and Sunny, I think, has spoken to all the principals and said she is more than welcome to come in and explain this kind of thing.
Sunny and I will be speaking with everyone, we're stealing some time at the principals meeting in
Right.
September, we couldn't get on the August agenda, apparently they're busy. So we are meeting with the entire principal team, to explain the BOCES coasters that she has pushed wider for, Ithaca, and specifically how IPEI, FAPG, Ithaca STEM, those types of organizations who make grants to teachers and classes, that their funds can doubly benefit, or 1.42 cents benefit the classroom, and how it is the onus of the principal what they do with that. And some
But I
principals are
think
really
it's supposed to
comfortable
be
with it.
spent
Yes.
in those same areas, which is
Yes, that's,
the arts
Right.
or math or science.
which is great.
Yeah.
Which isn't any problem.
No,
Right, I mean, I understand the process of
And I
it
think
now, but it's
Steve and Sunny are gonna explain that to the principals and also offer again to come to say, it's unfair that it's a hidden kind of thing
Right,
that
right. Well, that's what
all
I'm saying.
teachers should know.
And it's,
Fiddly money.
it has traditionally been very difficult, it seems, for principals, because there were extra papers and extra people involved, and it's time delay. And Sunny has worked on her end, and we've worked on ours, and we spent a lot of time with the district finance office, because sometimes that's the bottleneck, they get a check, they need to know what to do with it. And that's tricky, because it's literally going 4 different
We've
directions.
worked really hard to make that process, and Sunny has widened the parameters.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all, I just think it needs to be more than just.
And we can make sure that's mentioned at the back to school days. Since most of that'll happen after we've talked to the principals, I feel more comfortable blowing their cover on that after we've talked to them. That grants that are BOCES aidable, we're gonna try and run through BOCES because it benefits the school.
Yeah, some principals aren't hiding this, others don't understand it
And we
themselves.
used to never run the $500 ones through, we thought they weren't worth all the trouble, but
Sunny has
No,
streamlined.
it's over
it.
$200 that you get back.
Right.
I think it's worth it, so
Yeah.
So
now
that's
if
the
it's
conversation.
BOCES aidable, we're not really giving you a choice. We will run it through you.
Especially teacher grants, because they go to the district anyway, they're already there. If it's $500, we'll have a conversation, and if it's worth the extra $200 to you next year, and if that makes sense, or if it's just easier and I'm just buying stuff, sometimes it's easier.
But legally, that money is the principal. We
The issue-
have no connection to it once.
Legally, it is the district's, and the district has handed it to the principal in that line.
But you know, Spencer, there's gonna be other people at that faculty meeting, if we bring this up at the faculty meeting, who are gonna sit there just like you and
Just like
say,
you.
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna let it fly, because they don't have a sticky tab to hook that to, because they don't know anything about it.
Right.
And so.
That's why we're talking principals first, just to let them know that, and Sunny and I will be in buildings talking to teachers and saying, "Rick, how to do these things."
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have, there you go.
There are ways to find this out. Yeah, I'll definitely put it back in there. But I mean,
I think that's two years.
We should get on your choice on this, so we can because they'll be able to outline a little more.
Thank
you so
And
much.
thanks for being there.
And it's not that we didn't do the pieces now.
No.
There's a second
The
piece.
problem is that
Oh, great, what's the
that's
second?
really,
In
so
our
that's
class,
really a teacher problem.
within the same area.
That we
Okay, so
You got that.
So
Yeah.
PTA money over the summer.
unless you.
Wait, that man, I got his message, and I know it's awesome.
Yeah.
And
But we wanted to, there's like a sort of
yeah, I know,
outlines or
we
what
did
you
bring
a
her.
pond here, a fenced area, and we left a sort of banked area, almost like a landscape. And it's like mini styles, which is
And then
really
there's
great
another aspect.
landscape. And we
But
wanted
I
to
would
have
bet
some
if you,
stone
if
that
that's
seems
something
like
that you
actually
different
fun,
wants
like
that.
Yeah,
some
definitely,
So.
definitely, yeah.
I think
Side.
and as I say, the sun
And
really
if
comes.
it's tap on
Yeah,
the
so
screen,
you can
it's
record
just
yeah, Sunny's been
rather
wonderful.
than
Even if that's not,
Yeah.
she doesn't
doing
think
something, somebody's showing something to fun, whatever it is.
It's definitely.
In a fenced area, in a fenced area, but then fenced
Absolutely.
and that's the last.
Awesome, awesome. There's another room to track it just once a
Yeah. But you're, you know, you're they're working
Yeah,
on
yeah.
dance, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
And, you know, sure, down there.
So that would be my first estimate.
It's really helpful.
Yeah.
Good.
And then after that now,
When I get to really, I wasn't sure, where she's going to administrative.
depending on the size of the project.
No, part of it.
Had done it.
And also letting
Off the top of my
yeah.
head,
Not education.
would be, is there a way to make this fifth grade, this kind of design?
So
Art, is a building of it, rather than just paying for someone to build it. Because they come out and say, we're in classrooms, Carolina, South Sherman. Their work is
So this year I
not only gonna
I know you said
like,
something else,
but
just
to
to
reach in and add costs through. Something about West Carolina, outside their fire lanes, to.
No,
This was years ago.
That's what you're talking about.
Give it a go.
Right, there was
Yeah.
that thing,
It's really good.
he did that years ago, and someone else brought it up. and I was like,
Yeah, he's been a great, I've been a big influence on him.
I think you came right after I left. Yeah, both choices.
Okay,
And it's right now in
And that being why they say.
Good, glad it was
Not just trying to use
No, I know.
someone who's not gonna ask
Great, and there's
the staff to make all this. So that would be where my brain goes about this education and
Okay.
doing
Are the
it
ones workshops in the district,
Or
have training
can we
sessions,
identify
get all the fifth graders.
something that would be.
And then we have somebody come in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me I'm sorry, let me just introduce myself. I'm Linda Dickens, the social principal of Boise.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
It's good to meet you. It's good
Yeah,
to meet you.
excellent. I was just telling everybody how wonderful it's
Great.
great putting new faces too.
Well, I'll be around the building.
Okay,
So
great.
I'll drop in and say.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thinking about the grant.
Didn't really
One of the application was around what grade level you're in. Like, we talked about this, like, I always like learning.
district and not so much. Even if it was like a one-time wage.
Oh,
Some
Yeah, I was
questions
trying to
relate
think
to
how can we
overtime, we haven't know one
They
class
ask
is
for
missing,
more
one
training
other
and
class
we
is
have not funded.
Right, it's not,
Or people,
but
teachers have asked
maybe
to
that's a
go
piece
to
of training.
in the summer.
Yeah.
It's
And
one
we have
class
not
or
funded
next
students
classroom.
in that.
Tell me
So
one
not
thing
funded,
that's
but I'm trying to figure out how we
in this space, so
can
that you're making the argument, so it's not just
In
one
my
class or even one grade.
Whether
It's
it's
brainstorming, it may or may not happen, but
there is a line item for training and
what
we
there's
are
space there for that.
coordinated
But
with
to
the
get caught in
different
Well,
grade
I mean, even
levels.
if I should
To me, to figure out how they all could, yeah, they have
There's
a
space
space
for all this, especially given that we've done
built
some
into
more
the, because we know this was huge.
Right, that was sort of my
So
question.
you got
Seems like
three
other
things.
things are happening.
So but then the whole idea is that what could be the product?
Because it's about
And not
those
depend
other
on-
programs
Is
about
there a way in college
finding the
knows
time
somehow
create
They will place
curriculum and going with
grades
the
or
where does it
expeditionary learning model.
I went to a
you know,
Syracuse for a
using
minor
that
and then I got my
language that
teaching degree
aligns
at
with district
schools
schools,
across
help
grade levels.
maybe you should say, well, maybe we don't get it.
Okay,
Yeah,
And
and
obviously
obviously
talking to the district makes
And we build space for that.
But I mean,
And
I just thought I'd
so
ask
that's like
about
a
it.
bigger, that's like
I mean,
a
one
classroom,
thing
there's
that I saw
400
somebody
buildings
do that I thought was
each one
useful
of
was
those
like,
right?
they ran a,
Right.
like a
Yes.
code
Yes.
Right,
It could be four, I mean, it could just be,
Yeah.
And
there's
so,
a cost of materials.
and they
Yeah,
realized
they
they
have
had
to
to
teach,
teach,
but it
so
does
they were
go to
teachers at
teacher
high
time.
school, college teachers of like second grade.
The building,
And then the kids would
and
do
you've got
what they can.
project
And so
on
they need
lessons
to
that
get
tie
together.
the standards, let's go.
One of the sites
That
that
would be
super
like-
cheap, some kind of curriculum that
In
development
natural
was
study.
So
But
it was
I
really
was
nice.
or what happens after
It
that.
was, yeah.
Which is
Are
awesome,
you
but I
looking
think
for
those
graduate
two
credits?
pieces will help
Yeah.
with the sale
And
of the grants.
to do that.
We're not just hiring a couple
And
of
how-
people to do it.
You know, when I was there,
What we're doing is
we
like
had
a
science
science
kids,
side,
I was
research,
ideal.
how emphasis on our classroom.
Cornell put together.
Comparing costs versus
Right.
ability.
That they have, I wanna be able to use it, and they won't even let me use it, cause I'm not certified. But I have good relationships with the teachers over there, so they also wanna train out teachers, they're GOA, they go
From third to a second grade, so
in
have they gone
technology.
through
So it's
Oh, and
okay.
the technology
High
is
school.
But is it
All
like
now,
we
and
teach
then
in
our
fifth
second
grade, is
is all
that just
now,
more,
so like
that's just,
everything
yeah,
that
like,
goes
maybe
into
it's
the
in a
other
different
two.
grade, or is that,
Yeah.
that's helpful, I think, we're to grades, it's really helpful for another grade to be from.
These are lessons that they can grow because they study plant life, plant cycles, and they design them, figure out how to do it, researching water, right? All the plants in the ground, where you don't know how water gets, and these are the words usually grow, all of
But the
that.
whole idea
Steps of
of
this
the
project.
process of science, so the kids
And yes,
actually are in it.
rather than actually involve just somebody building it. But
Right, but like,
Some of the ones that we did, I'll tell you guys.
I need to contact them anyway, because I also, I
That's
started
for the
doing
joint
professional,
classrool.
and I think what you
I don't like the way
can
it
do
looks,
is
it's
try
jumping in, but it's literally.
So they.
So-
I
200 programs to get the interest.
There are no.
Talk courses, really, 40, 90 day or
You
you're
learn
looking
from
at
what
after.
wrong. Yeah, okay, so that is learning was something you can correct that.
It's really only have
Two
to
areas, right?
Then we'll go through
And
the
you're
formal
right,
proposal, which is a much
You
more,
know,
an
it's
actually
so,
much more
that's the
about
learning,
this.
because that's more valuable
Where
in
we flesh out
itself,
all
learning
of the
that
facts.
fact.
Well, there's more
And
of
then
that.
it goes before the committee,
That's
or
right.
maybe
That's
supplements
right.
right
And she
together.
talks
So,
about
that's
the art with the
You want them to
and then
experience,
we can
but
do
that they're on, yes,
we
so they.
stay for it's ready.
I think I was just
And
the
some
only
don't,
one,
take it,
everyone
it's
else
ready.
ran out of
Thanks for coming down.
So understand.
Are you gonna continue to serve on that committee?
Last year we had
It was just good to hear.
4
Another
applicants,
thought
and actually only one completed the process, it's just never got interview with the board. I knew necessarily why I didn't take this for a big one.
Us later than on the third.
Yes. Yes.
It can be, but it's more like a
That
top
should be
level,
Right.
doing
something
everything.
like that.
Which just
You know, I was thinking teachers would
collaborate
really
with,
check
just
Yes.
get them, like
Yeah.
just thinking about our classrooms. But
Right.
to
And
that
in
also,
fact,
you know,
if there's kids
we get a student
you could somehow train
Oh, yeah.
To volunteer
for
or.
sure, but
and
how
to
about
present
the more we get.
and then
They
they
are
should
subject
involve
to
elementary
one
school.
doesn't have to.
to
Like
present
that's where like there's
Yes.
like certain ways they
If
split
you
it.
It's complicated, it might be easier to bring the elementary kids to.
If there's
Well,
time
and now
involved.
we're doing most of the
Go after
Teachers
Yeah,
together,
you know,
and
You
time.
gotta, you gotta find
Yes.
a parent
Well,
contact,
grads,
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they have
Maybe
lots of
it's
people
more
that yeah, see,
Then you're
we
good.
have funny
We'll
parents.
make the time.
It's good to meet
You don't
you.
necessarily have to have
It's
every
just,
teacher.
it's only very often
Well, I
bounce
mean,
to
by
us.
the time, yeah.
Connie, you have a minute too?
Yep.
Okay.
I would say
This
so
bounce
during
to,
the event.
would say, go ask Connie.
Hello.
Is it we funded?
I hear you got your pun, huh?
We have.
Good for you.
We're now talking about the next part that we're looking to do.
As long as it's not good, well, I don't see that you have the same barriers.
Student that part,
I
and you know,
think there was a safety
my
issue that
Judy
you
Maxwell,
just
who I
couldn't
taught
have.
for years, got out of school board. And I said,
We're discussing outdoor classroom space, I want to announce there, just opening thoughts on you before they come away.
yeah, the
I
principal's
don't know
right.
if we're needed over there, or if you have something in there.
Yep, I do, that's what we're here for.
So we have a.
Thank you.
It's good
On
business.
this.
I'm not really even in this round,
She's
I
in
do,
class
I
for
teach with the
75
but I don't
years.
know my department.
You know, she was playing the
Dabble.
other.
Nice.
Especially in your, I know one of
Just,
my colleagues teaches that way here, and
Yeah.
well, she had to read out where they call
This is
fire
like,
Year
you
into-
can be very.
into the
Now they call them digitalized,
Right.
Opening.
and then it's $2,000 to digitalize them.
No, it's such a big deal.
So everyone says just buy the accounts,
Yeah,
but like,
That's something coming
It's a
from
natural
$1,000.
sweat.
yeah,
No.
so it's like this crazy thing, but literally, I
I'm not quite sure what we're gonna make out.
You know,
the
it's
three
crazy.
benefits, they have, they
It's
teach this
One
again
We're
this year,
That's where
is that
have that.
the school felt so stupid.
That's right.
So now you're talking about,
Any
I
other
think,
downtime?
I think
Please.
what,
Once
what
the
I
fire
really
department
like
goes
about
online,
this
it's
is
like
for
really
you.
well.
Yes.
Something might
And
be
what's
the
their
other
clothes,
building.
we're trying to
All of
all
these
these
things
that
that
like very permanently. They never were following before,
Not
and
really
sustaining,
tapping
weren't
that.
even asking
For
for,
training.
you know,
No.
for safety.
But I'm wondering if,
Program them their own
You know,
little
I just
secret.
A little bit.
It's
Not much,
time,
but,
you know, such
No,
a.
yeah, like in everything.
Yeah.
the college,
Right.
But if they could work
But
on
I
some
mean,
of
it
the
does,
volunteer,
it does,
that kind of thing.
the landscape.
Cornell has
Just
that
something
landscape
to be able to
area
program it
design.
and be able to look back and see
I'm also
how
in
it's
June.
programmed, then to be able to rely on the code.
That could be.
Because they won't help their teachers for the next
Whatever,
And they're all-
so.
NOR,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, usually it's a slow process.
Chris
graduates.
It was, I passed your PowerPoint on to my colleagues, so.
I would
Very
love
fun.
to, I would love to work on something like that. See,
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Just share.
We've
met
Well,
before.
design, physics,
Outdoor.
Physics AP at the high school, and you know, the whole, the new
Johnson.
standards coming down the line.
And Chris designed that.
Right.
He worked for,
Yeah.
Human
Yeah.
Landscape.
You're the
Also,
history guy.
Okay, so NGSS,
is,
the next generation, so
Yes,
Sarah
I know.
Piper. So New York State.
I'm getting judged.
Yeah, they've done a lot for us already.
They don't
Yeah,
even-
so there are
It's- it's-
Some of the supplies.
But he may have some ideas.
Right.
New York State life
Yeah.
science.
No,
Science standards.
We have a
State
state
science
science
learning
learning
standards.
The pond design.
This-
Minutes, right.
Anyway,
She's a
they're
member,
doing
she's
this
a parent
rollout
of school,
that's
she helps us sort of
Yeah.
starting in
plan
elementary work.
the space and, you know, the nitty gritty of it. But I guess, like, more sure.
But it's more process oriented and you won't know
Like, she's just helping us.
Move grade level or the, you know,
She's
teaching sciences
available.
and it's comfortable.
But like when somebody
I
like
know when I
wants
was
to
doing
do
science
more,
curriculum, one of the
I don't
critical
No,
things
I
you
just
know,
said Chris would
did
have
allow
some ideas.
because
Yeah.
is for us to go in and
I think
train
you could, you
science
could list them all.
lesson type
They're-
things.
She's not asking you to take the competition.
No.
See, that's the only
That would be
place
the place
that
to
she,
go.
you have
Let's
to
think
partners
bigger.
volunteer.
Right, right.
Classrooms.
Get value in that and put that
Whether
on
there's a
there on the
way
budget that,
that we can
she
combine
wanted to get for
elementary
that,
and
Okay.
and
high
then
school
just say,
teachers.
donate
But
that
yet, then
time. So
another
that's-
element came up, AP
clear on
physics students,
But if
and
you're talking
life
to
science
teachers,
seems
so
to be
that
more
gives you a
supported than
community
physics.
partner.
But AP
Right.
physics,
That
at the
will
moment,
put it
AP
in the
physics
$1,600
students
range.
going into elementary
The other
classrooms
piece then
to do
is
a
if you're talking
process
supplies and you're talking
lesson
clothes or the,
is a connecting
ask, tell them what it's
more.
for, ask
Wow.
them, they'll give you a discount.
That's big.
Worst they can
Well, that
say
That's
is
an
big.
interesting
Or
idea.
having the
Yeah,
kids.
we've had a lot of
Us.
discounts on them.
In
the
their
kids
labs.
have
Like
lunch
students,
well, try not to eat the same people
lumber,
twice.
Right, yeah.
Students or to the
You
teachers?
know, as far as
Well,
I
at the
certainly
same
would ask them a lot
Or
of
they have
things,
matching
things
Or
like that.
my kids with their
Joyce's son's apartment
running
went to
little
Kew Gardens.
lessons.
Okay.
He might be
And then if we
Experiments,
create
not
those
really
experiments
lessons.
that we could run in
Just,
the
I'm trying to
future.
think there'd be
The
something.
Well, the
that's-
teacher would learn at the same time,
Right.
teacher would be
Right.
ideal that these AP students don't have. We have a week in January that it'd have to be volunteers, and I don't know whether that
Yeah.
would work.
We're
Let's hope
we're
we
thinking
have
stone,
money
we're thinking stone if we
to
can.
support a teacher
Because of
having
Like an
students
ideal
who wanted to
world,
do
permanent
something.
side of it, you know,
Because they have a
taking
week
it
the
to
regional
side and then
where,
Right,
stone.
because you're only in the building for testing. and
Right,
things
if
like
Begin like
those
this.
children could come up with, and with their teachers
Uh-huh.
and training,
Either pads
a
or
lesson, and
Yeah.
get training
Um,
taught to be done
Have you had
after the
Mason
AP
working with you
exam
before?
in June
What's his
in
name?
the
David
elementary
Bryan.
classrooms.
The thing
Thank
I
you.
would
Yes,
wanna do.
I had his head.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just throwing ideas out. The
Yeah.
thing,
Yes, yes.
To your idea.
Yes.
the thing I wouldn't wanna do is me saying I'm
Yeah,
training my
Dave- yeah,
kids
Dave I
to do
know
something with the
pretty
elementary
well. He
kids.
would
We need the
sure help
elementary
us,
teacher there.
certainly. He
Well,
probably
that's-
has
I
three
don't
guys
know
out
how
there
to
with
design
it,
the
what he would
lesson for the elementary. Like, I don't know,
negotiate.
I
So that could be
know
planned
science,
plans, that could be paid
but I
plans.
don't know how to work it, make it
So-
workable for them.
So what you would need potentially, just thinking.
One thing
about
Steve
that.
mentioned
We also want the
was,
elementary
he thought it would
teacher
be
to come in.
useful
Right, what
to
you want, what you
And
kind of
have
want
the
is
design of the
to meet with an elementary teacher, this is a small
Project
would have
be
that, right? To meet with an elementary
researched
teacher,
by
say,
students.
we need to plan a lesson.
so
Yeah.
there was a learning, not just a
Having
usefulness
high school
after it's built, but
teaching
actually during
experience.
the build, during the
And
planning and building.
for this one time
And
volunteers are
Caroline
interested in sort
has
of,
had good luck with that.
let's think about the lesson, what do
I
you
wanna
need
think
to
the
teach?
fourth and fifth
Because
grades
you're a
are-
high school physics teacher,
They
you
don't
need the
speak
elementary
And
teacher
this-
to be
what-
like, what, how do you teach first graders
Yeah.
science? Because it's an
Regular
entirely different
programs for
world.
that.
And
And that
they
may
can talk to you
be
about
beyond
that.
the third
You
graders.
could then help
Right.
generate, two of you
Right.
could have planning
Well, we
time
might
to
better-
But if
generate
we do,
less.
if we could tie in the
And
first and
students
fifth graders,
are
Yeah.
so we can come up with some, then we have to connect the classrooms,
I don't
so
know,
we have
service
to come up
hours,
to something that maybe
The
we could.
teacher
be
primary
larger
grade, the teacher benefits at the
1500.
lower level from helping.
I
plan
would say for
science
connecting
generation standards
classrooms,
across the whole curriculum, like
I don't see
learning.
that as innovative.
And
Okay.
the students get the experience of like
I would
teaching,
have a hard
some of them
time
will
with that,
love,
so.
like working with little kids, and if it's voluntary, you'll
Okay.
be able to want to do
So
that.
teacher
So this
primary
is a
thinking.
possible
I
thing
think,
to go
you know, I
through,
think
like
that's
the
a
connected
great-
classrooms.
you know, you would have
Just
to have a big curriculum.
Just throwing it
Yeah,
out there,
and
so I mean,
she-
it's pretty vague right now.
Talk to Carlin, Carlin's done
Are you
connecting
gonna
classrooms,
put the,
but
Yeah.
I don't know how to make
Lily's
this,
in
the
there,
whole
like
idea
any,
being that these
fun-
standards are more, it's
And
more of a
Lily's,
process,
Um,
learning,
We
More process,
have
more
quite a
like
few
even
plans
at
in
the
there
lower
already.
levels,
I could not say what they are.
Yeah.
They're really,
Worst
they're
plan.
pushing a lot
Yeah, we're
of
not, we
resilience
weren't able
and
to
stuff.
put any water until
Earlier,
the fence
much
was
earlier on.
Right, so right now we've got about
Right.
7 inches of
And I
water
think
with
this
some
is
water
the-
plants, there are some,
level of comfort at the elementary
there's
level
spiral
for
plants.
teachers to teach
It's just
science.
amazing, Nancy
They
Risner
will
is retired
expect,
science
New York
teacher
will
in high
expect,
school.
I mean, it sounds like a district issue that needs, the
Yeah.
district
Yeah.
needs
And
to
it
address
So we
it.
can help doing time.
Nancy
Well, I just-
Risner,
And it would be, yeah, cause if I'm an elementary science teacher,
RIDE.
I don't understand necessarily the end
And,
goal of AP physics, right? I understand how big
I mean, I'm sure she could use some plans, but
Right.
she may have some other,
I
I mean,
think,
she
yeah.
also is a stamping journal.
maybe having that conversation
Oh,
will help
well,
us
then,
think about the process.
Be careful.
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or something.
Frogs that
And
have
be
their
careful,
own standard.
Yeah,
She's also.
Yeah, it just,
Or
I think,
have a
listen,
functional-
it's
I
so,
don't know
at
if
the
it would be
elementary,
helpful.
I
She's,
was a science curriculum chair at the elementary for years. And if we didn't train them, Steve, and we didn't have
but
out school
as I said, I
time,
have
the
no
whole
whole
fourth
thing that
graders
says-
and work them through each one of the
Lilies and
units
blossoms, that's what she is.
that we were doing.
And she started with
because
5 and she said she's got 5
comfort level wasn't there.
Wow.
I'm sure if you
You know,
want.
so they asked us, I don't get it, this isn't working. And
Because
you
I
see,
think the ones
to
we
take
got to, we
on,
were
to
told
take
will
on
last through
doing things with the
spring, so
classroom
we'll
of
have to
little
do
guys,
whatever we
they
have
want it
to
to
do.
work right, but what if something goes wrong?
But yeah, and that's fine if it goes wrong. So that's a big, another piece of
Okay,
comfort.
it's great if it goes wrong, because then you learn more from going wrong than going right, but
Yeah,
yet
so
they themselves didn't
Or
understand.
just strategies.
Oh, and by the way,
Which is-
Chris Norberg is Sarah,
So- It was very uncomfortable as to why.
Okay, so it's an easier way to
Works
do it.
in the world of physics.
Yes.
Because
Which is how I know about the
Yeah,
ponds.
or science,
It's how I know
graph,
about the
temperatures or whatever.
So I mean, I have lots of ideas
So,
for things
there's
that
an
could
idea.
work there.
There's
You know,
an
I just think he might be willing to come in and look at it and give you his advice on what he thinks might
keep talking it through and fleshing the idea out.
Okay,
But there's an
Because the
idea.
other thing.
okay, well, I will first talk to Carlin,
Yeah,
because she's the head of our
Old
department,
telephone poles or.
And she-
see where things, where
She's
I'm
done
thinking.
connecting questions.
Yeah,
Right.
we've
Yeah,
been
like,
through
you
some
know,
Thinking about
options.
those.
Yeah, but we wanted to try and
other
make it
sort of
more
things, but-
permanent.
Yeah.
If we
And
could.
she's much more, you know,
Just worry
she's
about
very
the
comfortable with the biology,
how
so
wet
that's
it
where they
is,
start.
training.
With the training for the
Things like
elementary,
that.
I really
So they
really
are
wanna
doing,
bring in.
so they are doing trauma training for the elementary.
So they started with this thing,
Well, as I say, I think
it was a
somehow we
joint
get kids involved and
Yeah.
figure out
with
how they
elementary,
and
high
could
school,
be
middle school.
in measuring
And I
and
was the only high
determining
school
what's
person, I think.
what's there and showing it out, even if it was
Elementary, it was different people
run
every
by
time, it was never
parents.
more than four.
materials.
So then they did some stuff this
Yeah.
summer, and I'm not
Piece
exactly
of wood,
sure
piece of stone, piece
how
of
that
water
went
to
or
get
what happened with that.
water to get outside.
Yeah, if you don't give
in the
release
winter.
time,
Yeah.
we used to have like half days on a Wednesday, every whatever.
That would be very.
And that's when we did all the training.
That would be,
It was
that would be
it was
very cool.
huge.
Right.
Before the training teachers would in this building, you had
Yeah.
trainer over
Stone
here
from
and
the
stuff.
telephone pole.
I mean, it was crazy, but I had home
I-
science center.
Yeah.
I actually think
the
that
lab,
would be a
the
better
net
project,
plantation.
would be to
Well, I
have
just
the
think
kids
it's
gather
physics is
material.
perfect, I mean, it's so fun, you just play with
You know,
toys
that
and
might
observing
be
things.
used for
So
some
me,
work
it's
and
actually
do some experiments with
Kids
kids.
more
And
it's
as I say,
easier
it's-
in
it's-
some ways than the biology, which is
That
longer
you could
term
probably
type
do
thing.
by the
Yeah.
whole grant.
But it's also
Still
something
come
where
back.
people
I'm-
have
I'm sure you
discomfort
can
and a lot of
Yes.
misconceptions and
Yeah. Yeah.
Or don't have any
Yeah,
conceptions,
I don't think
complete
we're, I don't
misconceptions.
think we're.
Yeah,
They never liked it to begin with,
yeah.
and you know,
Or they think it's all
Probably-
math now.
right,
we
right,
need
they
to do.
check
It's
that
just
off
get
when
it
they
approved
became
by
English
you.
teachers, you know, they. And then so unfortunately, a
As I
lot of
say,
elementary
it's
teachers
not all
are.
me, right, you know?
Right, no,
So
you-
now
you-
Joyce and I tried
US
when we were in the meeting, we
US
had to have an
net
opinion,
US
but
net
Reading
Reading
that,
writing
your
was really
personal
safe
interest in
Right.
It
science
just couldn't
or
get past the
history.
same.
And
If you wanted to
physics and
explore
engineering, all these
education
things
goes
are like
backwards
in
and
the new
things
standards
that,
for elementary.
because we actually talked about that.
So it's a big
Right.
machine.
Yeah.
So it would be
That's a
great
lot.
I
to.
said, are we willing to do this for every
Sure.
school?
Okay,
All
in
right,
district? Otherwise,
I'll
we'll
keep
call it
thinking about
pilot.
this one too.
Call it pilot kids.
Yeah,
But
So
I
the
think
other
the
thing is just
other,
simple, I just want to.
Mary,
That's gonna be easy, right, I think.
McDaniels, thank you.
For, to build
I just
some.
know the name.
Well,
Yeah.
she babysat my children, but she wasn't a
Okay,
fan.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
But she was
Thank you,
explaining
Michael.
all to
Steve,
the
these are
seniors
yours
in class,
too, and I'll put it with your.
but she was having the kids part of the evaluation and reflecting.
What is this?
Are these,
That's an
Are these for grabs, these tomatoes?
So
Connie
you
and I
may
were
wanna
running
talk to
down
her
the
about
names
that,
to
look at
do.
what she did.
Right.
Because the committee really wants, because the kids.
I know we talked
So
about
I would
it,
go with
yes.
that route.
Saying liaison.
If you want more than that, take them.
As I was wondering.
Yes, they're from Joyce's garden.
No.
Oh, please take
Thank you.
tomatoes, I didn't even get that in.
I'll take
Right.
Take
some.
lots of tomatoes, those are just,
Thank you.
they're coming like
They're
crazy.
beautiful.
If you don't leave quickly, you're gonna end up with all
With
those
all the
tomatoes.
tomatoes.
Unless you want tomato.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think you're
do you
right.
want tomatoes? I'm gonna
It could
take a
be
couple.
valuable if we have these teachers to part, if a board member really wanted to go as well, because it's a training, but also,
You know, originally back in dark ages when I was just one of these people, okay? We always contacted the board of
Thanks, Kelly.
liaison and said,
Thank
the
you.
principal
Good luck.
suggested
Thanks.
this is the time, would love to have you there. And so Mary
Okay.
would go with me to Fall Creek, or somebody
Right,
else would be
right.
there, and they would do a little bit of thing on that kind of thing. But as long as they weren't too verbose, we were okay. But I said, we always used to contact the liaisons at school.
Thank
Dark
you.
ages.
Thank you for
Do
doing
wanna
that,
join
I
us?
appreciate it.
No problem.
The problem is that they wanna say something, and there's,
Did I just steal it? I don't know.
Well, do you wanna join us and not say anything, but be represented and introduced?
I don't need it, you can have it if you want.
That's, I guess, what we would have to say. A lot of them would say no, they didn't have the time,
I
or that
I
time.
would say it's a waste of my
Yeah.
time, but, at any rate, I just was trying to avoid what happened last year, that was all my fault last year, but I thought it would work and it really didn't. So that's why I was saying to identify retired teachers, you gotta get in and get out, and not open it up to the board. Do you feel differently?
I think that's fine. I think if we have members of the board who are interested in being present,
Thanks, bye.
Oh, that, I'm
presentation.
fine with that.
I think it's a good, like, an opportunity. One of my goals this year is to create opportunities for
Yep.
volunteerism and involvement, especially with new board members. But it's a tough time, it's weird, and
And I'm
I will put
gonna, and
pressure
I'm
on
gonna
you
step
people
back
to,
as liaison to DeWitt, but
That's
I'm
all.
betting Andrea will take it.
Well, first of all, liaisons. You know, at one point, they had dumped that on me, and I'm like, I'm not even a board member, why am I assigning liaisons? So who is dealing with liaisons we haven't gotten a letter out
no.
to say, are
Monica,
you still willing to be the
Monica is
liaison?
supposed to be on that, and I will be
Okay.
following them. I
Will
think
that
we-
come up in the
I think
office?
that's gonna come up this week at the board.
Okay, yeah, that's this week at the board meeting.
That is,
Yes.
it's like 3 days from now.
Yes, so, but that needs to be set up, one,
Yes.
all right?
And I think we need to define a little bit clearly what that means for people who
Yeah.
are liaisons. I think it's all over the place right now, but
Well, I'm the minimalist, if I never go to another PTA meeting again, it'd be too soon, so, and I didn't go to one at DeWitt. I put it on my calendar and I forgot.
okay.
I had to make time for me.
Okay, then the next thing that's real critical, because I still only one faculty meeting a month or two.
There's two,
Okay.
there's two,
Yeah.
but I'm
We are looking
gone
at
in September,
September
so are you.
And September
September
20th.
We've
Ours
already
is-
gotten 2 invitations.
All right,
to
you
the
put
20.
that out to the principals, okay, we have to.
I asked the principals last week. and
Okay,
I'm
who
gonna
wants the
ask them
20th?
again. Right now, Lily at Northeast, I think Mary Grover she's a maybe, and Perry Corin.
See, and I need these two.
Southhill?
Perry is at Southhill. I had a long meeting, I had a half-hour meeting with him, just to introduce us, last week.
Oh, but those are the only three you've gotten back.
Okay, I can
So what
only,
next?
I haven't checked my email yet.
I
this
can
morning.
only do the 6th.
Mhm.
I can't do the 20th.
Most of them, the 3 have written back, Mary was like, I'd much rather have you on the 20th, because the 6th is so selective. I'm like, I get that. But you're giving yourself 21 days versus 51 if you get us on the 6th, right? Because.
Right, but-
Hey, but that's.
So, if everybody wants us on the 20th, then we're really in trouble.
It's gonna be, it's gonna be.
Because
Well,
aren't you gone the 20th too?
No, I have delayed that trip because of this, so that I can I can get to Jean's late at night and get everything done and be in the car at 5 in the morning the next day, it works.
That's college, you're being crazy.
Yeah.
I know, but I can do an elementary thing on the 20th, I can do the 20th. I can do the 6th, I can do the 20th.
Well, Andrea is new, but she's gotten a whole bunch of grants. I think we can train her, so my suggestion is that if Marcy will do it, if Jennifer will do it, that what I think we ought to do is have a coffee some morning
Yes.
and
And
just
run it
kind of
through.
go over what we're gonna do,
And
play your little piece,
Steve's gotta check his video, so.
and cause literally, I
And
mean,
have-
literally, we cannot take more than 10 minutes.
No.
No.
I think my video is 3.5, so.
And then we have this little sheet with
I'm gonna have
bullets.
some facts, some bullets about the number of grants received the previous year, we'll ask if there's any teachers that point them out as go-tos.
Yeah, have
I'll
raise
take
your hand. In fact, we can give each one, like Andrea, for DeWitt, we can print out who had grants in the last 2 years, so we can get a printout like that.
Yeah, and
Which
they're
we
gonna
did.
do the
We have
bookmarks.
We'll have that. We're gonna do something with the bookmarks.
So we're gonna take up a collection for a new belt for you, because you're on your last loop.
Let's get down,
Yeah, you're getting just wasting
wasting
away,
away.
Yeah.
wasting away.
Alright, so next step then
So do you want
is to
this
call, wait a minute. You want more?
Do you have me on there? Do you want?
We don't, we figured we could twist your arm.
And who else did you put in there, Lori?
Well, I put Lori Rubin, I don't know if she would do it, but she is a donor, she's been on all ends of it, she's been paid as a consultant
Where
too.
did she teach?
Cuban Heights.
Okay.
But she's really into journaling, and we funded her to work
Yeah.
at Bell Sherman on journaling outside. Marilyn Mayer just retired from Northeast, but she had a grant last year.
Mhm.
I don't know that she's a donor.
Steve, I don't know that Steve.
I've asked
Yeah.
Steve, and Steve always ends up coming up with some reason why he can't do it.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
And I
that's
don't
fine.
know that Karen Powers has been able to, has been involved.
And Linda may take,
I think Linda might take 2.
but it'd have to be 6 and 20, she'll only do elementary, or will she, see, we got these guys covered. We know
Well, unless they all
LACS
want
won't wanna let us in anyway.
LACS.
You deal with
LACS.
LACS, okay? Steve has LACS.
And if not
And what else, we're looking, but you wanna call Jennifer? You wanna call,
Plan to plug me in as. the-
Andrea?
I can call either one, I need to call Marcy about quilting.
Alright, so you're gonna talk to her and you're gonna ask.
So do you want me to talk to
Yes,
Marcy as
yes.
well?
I'll do Jennifer. Andrea said that she was out of town, but she'll be coming back in here, so I don't know if she's in or not.
27th, October